Last summer was supposed to mark a new chapter for us. After years of scraping together every spare cent, Amanda and I finally decided to renovate our garden, her dream project. We hired a team of builders, and since I was frequently away on business trips, it seemed like the ideal arrangement. Amanda could oversee everything while I was out, and by the time I got back, we'd have a beautiful new garden to enjoy. Our house was modest, located at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac where everyone knew each other. It wasn't extravagant, but it was home, and we cherished it. A few years back, we'd installed a Ring camera facing the staircase, primarily for security. After a series of break-ins in the neighborhood, it was a precaution I felt necessary. Little did I know that this camera would reveal a nightmare I never anticipated. I rarely paid attention to the footage. Why would I? I trusted Amanda completely. She was my wife, my partner, and I never imagined she'd betray that trust. But reality has a harsh way of shattering illusions. A few months after the garden was finished, I found myself with some downtime. Sitting in my office and sifting through old emails, I randomly remembered the Ring camera. Out of sheer curiosity, I decided to review some of the footage from the summer. At first, it was the usual scenes: Amanda chatting with the builders, deliveries being made, the occasional neighborhood kid running by. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. But then I stumbled upon something that made my heart race. It was a Tuesday afternoon around 2 p.m. I was away on a business trip, as usual, and Amanda was home. The footage showed her talking to one of the younger builders, a guy no older than 19 or 20. He was tall, fit, and had that boyish charm typical of someone fresh out of college. They exchanged a few words, then Amanda led him upstairs. My first thought was that she was showing him the garden view from our bedroom window. Maybe they were discussing how the renovations would look from up there. But as the minutes ticked by, something felt off. The guy was up there for nearly an hour and a half. When they finally came back down, Amanda looked different. Her normally neat hair was tousled, and she was wearing a vest without a bra. Her face was flushed, and she appeared exhausted. The young builder wore a smug grin as he walked out. I told myself I was overreacting, that there was a perfectly innocent explanation. Maybe he'd just used the bathroom, or they'd gotten caught up in a long discussion. But the more I thought about it, the less convinced I became. Something wasn't right, and I couldn't ignore the growing doubt. Over the next few days, I found myself obsessing over the footage. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to it. I started reviewing more recordings, searching for any clues that might explain what I had seen. That's when the pattern began to emerge. It wasn't a one-time thing. There were other days, different builders, different times, but the same routine. Amanda would casually chat with one of them, then lead them upstairs when she thought no one was watching. They'd stay up there for over an hour, sometimes even two, and when they came down, Amanda always looked the same. Disheveled, flushed, as if she'd just been through something intense. The worst was yet to come. One day, I found footage of Amanda with one of the older builders, a man in his 50s with a graying beard and a stocky build. She led him upstairs on a Thursday afternoon, just like with the younger guy. They were up there for nearly 2 hours. When they came down, Amanda's hair was a mess, and she had a tired, almost defeated look on her face. It was then that the reality hit me like a ton of bricks. My wife wasn't just cheating on me, she was cheating on me with multiple men, right under my nose. The Ring camera had captured it all, and I had been too blind to see it. As days went by, I became consumed with uncovering every detail of Amanda's betrayal. I poured over hours of footage, each clip revealing more of the puzzle. I wanted to know everything: how many times it had happened, who else was involved, and most importantly, why. The more I watched, the more I realized Amanda had been leading a double life. On the surface, she was the perfect wife, caring, loving, always there when I needed her. But when I was away, she became someone else entirely. Someone who could smile and laugh with me one moment and then lead another man into our bedroom the next. There were moments that stood out, making me question everything I thought I knew about her. One particularly disturbing clip showed Amanda taking two builders upstairs at the same time. They were in their 30s, rugged and rough around the edges, and their interaction with her made my skin crawl. They were up there for almost 3 hours, and when they finally came down, Amanda looked utterly spent. Her hair was sticking to her forehead, her vest clung to her body, and she had a distant, hollow look in her eyes. I couldn't understand it. This wasn't the woman I married. Amanda had always been so careful about her appearance, so meticulous about how she presented herself, especially around strangers. But in those moments, caught on camera, she was someone else entirely. Someone who didn't care if her hair was a mess or if she was half-dressed in front of other men. Someone who was willing to throw away everything we had built together for... what? A few hours of illicit pleasure? The more footage I watched, the more I felt like I was losing my mind. I became paranoid, questioning every interaction Amanda had with others. Was she flirting with the cashier at the grocery store? Was she getting too close to the neighbor who borrowed a tool? I couldn't trust her anymore, and it was driving me insane. One night, after hours of watching footage, I found something that shook me to my core. It was a clip from late August, towards the end of the summer. I had been away on a particularly long business trip, and the garden project was nearing completion. The footage showed Amanda sitting on the back porch talking on her phone. I couldn't hear the conversation, but her expression, calm, almost smug, was clear. After hanging up, she walked over to the younger builder, the same guy I'd seen before. They exchanged a few words, then Amanda did something that made my blood run cold. She leaned in and kissed him. Not a peck, but a full-on, passionate kiss, right there in our backyard, in broad daylight. The builder didn't hesitate. He kissed her back, his hands roaming over her body as if they had done this 1,000 times before. I couldn't watch anymore. I slammed my laptop shut and sat in the dark, trying to process what I had just seen. My wife was not only cheating on me, but flaunting it right in front of our home. She didn't care if the neighbors were watching or if someone might catch them. She was completely out of control, and I had no idea what to do. In the days that followed, I became a ghost in my own home. I couldn't bring myself to confront Amanda, not yet. I needed time to think, to figure out how to handle this situation. I stopped sleeping in our bed, opting instead for the couch in my office. Amanda noticed, of course, but I made up an excuse about work stress and needing space. She didn't press the issue, probably too caught up in her own affairs to really care. I knew I couldn't go on like this forever. The anger and hurt were consuming me, and I needed to do something before I lost my mind completely. But every time I thought out about confronting Amanda, about telling her I knew what she had been doing, I froze. I wasn't ready to face the truth, to hear her admit she had been unfaithful. I wasn't ready to lose everything we had built together, but I couldn't hide from it forever. It was a cold, rainy evening when I finally made up my mind. I had spent the entire day locked in my office, reviewing the footage over and over until I could barely think straight. The rain pounded against the windows, matching the turmoil inside me. I knew I couldn't continue living like this, trapped in lies and deceit, pretending everything was fine when it was anything but. I had to confront Amanda. I had to get answers, even if it meant tearing our marriage apart. That night, as we sat down for dinner, I could barely look at her. She was talking about something, work, or maybe a new recipe she wanted to try. But I wasn't really listening. I was too focused on what I was about to do, on the words I had been rehearsing in my head for days. Finally, when she paused to take a sip of wine, I looked up and met her gaze. "Amanda," I began, my voice trembling, "there's something we need to talk about." She looked at me, confused. "What's wrong, honey? You've been acting strange lately. Is everything okay?" I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "No, everything is not okay. I know what you've been doing, Amanda. I know about the builders. I know about the affairs." For a moment, there was silence. Amanda stared at me, wide-eyed with shock. Slowly, she set down her glass and folded her hands in her lap. I don't know what you're talking about," she said, her voice wavering. I pulled out my laptop and brought up the footage of her and the young builder, the clip from the backyard. I played it for her, watching as her face paled with every passing second. When the video ended, she looked at me, tears streaming down her face. "Why, Amanda?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Why did you do this? What did I ever do to deserve this?" She tried to explain, her words coming out in a jumble of apologies and excuses. She talked about feeling neglected, about the excitement she sought outside our marriage. But none of it made sense to me. It felt like a feeble attempt to justify something that was unforgivable. In the end, it didn't matter what she said. The trust was shattered beyond repair, and I couldn't stay with someone who had betrayed me so completely. I packed a few things and went to stay with a friend, leaving Amanda behind to deal with the mess she had created. As I lay in the spare bedroom of my friend's house, I felt a profound sense of emptiness. I had lost more than just my wife. I had lost the life we had built together, the dreams we had shared. The betrayal was all-consuming, and I couldn't see a way forward. Amanda tried to reach out to me, calling and texting, but I ignored her. I couldn't bear to hear her voice or see her face. Eventually, she showed up at my friend's house, tears streaming down her cheeks. She begged for forgiveness, pleading with me to give her another chance. But it was too late. The damage was done, and I had already made up my mind. I told her it was over. I couldn't continue living in a lie, pretending that everything was okay when it clearly wasn't. The relationship was beyond repair, and I needed to move on.